Okay, good morning. It's 8:30 on February 26th, 2020. This is going to be as short as possible a video as I can do it. I have a lot of things to do, as everyone else does. Let's see here. Okay, so the point of this video is to present you with some resources that you can use in the ongoing SARS2 COVID-19 unfolding pandemic. I'm treating this as a bioweapon and will fiercely defend my point of view to anyone now that we've reached this point. And I'm going to offer resources that can be used on the understanding that this is a bioweapon. I'm going to present you with resources, strategies, and tactics, and I'll highlight certain strategies and tactics now that we're at this point because of the nature of the crises that we're in and are going to be in for some considerable time. Bear in mind, my understanding of this as a bioweapon means that you're going to be dealing with this for the next 3 years at a minimum, and maybe 5 years. It'll go around the planet in 3 predictable, very large waves, and then it should be ramping out, mainly due to the easily killed victims already having died and it not being able to replicate and so forth. So let's go through this real quick. Step through the data points I need to get to you to start and launch off on our bit of thinking here. You will note down in the description I have placed a couple of links. One is a short condensed thing. The other is the entire U.S. military multiple service nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare manual. In there, you're going to want to pay attention to chapters 2, which is planning, chapter 3, immediate decontamination, what to do right now if you think you've been exposed. 4 is operational planning. 5 is thorough decontamination. Thorough decontamination. Sorry, 4 is operational decontamination. How to go about your business every day. Okay, what you have to think about and what you have to do in an age of a bioweapon, and how you're going to have to react and all of that kind of stuff. I've had lots of requests for that. Literally hundreds and hundreds of emails. Okay, and it's a complex kind of a situation to wrap your head around, but the steps you need to take can be broken down into very simple steps that can be presented to the people you have to take care of. Now, I'm presenting this video for adults. We're going to deal with a very serious subject, and we're going to need to understand that it is our role as the elders to get the rest of the bastards through this, okay? And they're going to run into all different kinds of conditions, and we'll discuss some of those as we go through here. But so this is a video to help those people that have the responsibility for other people. And there's primary rule number 1, right? You must take care of yourself first in order to be healthy enough to take care of others. Never forget that. Okay, so that you're not doing those extreme things for your own body out of any kind of personal fear, any kind of ego issues or anything like that. It is because you know your responsibility to others that you are so extreme and hard on yourself as we go through this. And so you can just put aside any criticisms that someone may want to level at you and you're being extreme, etc. You know, extremism in the defense of life is difficult to argue. All right? So we have chapter 5, which is thorough decontamination, and we have chapter 6, which is clear decontamination. Entirely different concepts, and you'll need to look through these chapters. The book is 360 some odd pages long. You can read the whole thing. It'll depress the absolute hell out of you, just trying to wrap your head around why humans would do this to each other. But these chapters within the biological contamination third of the book will guide you through what you have to go through for these next 5 years. And you can condense these down into those rules that fit within your environment, reduce them to rules and procedures and that you can use and teach to the others in your family to also use. And you will go forward with the understanding that you are as mentally prepared as possible for the situation, which should relieve some level of anxiety. There will be less unknowns. That's why I'm doing these videos, okay? I'm not trying to scare people. I'm not trying to make it happen. I'm not trying to get people to wish it into existence or any of that kind of shit, right? Universe favors the prepared mind. I am a perfect example of that. I've done very well in my life by being prepared. So, we're going to discuss this SARS-CoV bioweapon. We're going to discuss its nature and its vulnerabilities, and then we're going to get right into strategies and tactics, and then I'm going to get the hell out of the way, and you can look at the manual and download it and start passing it around. Now, there's something to think about here when you get into this. For those people that understand the seriousness of the situation, potentially millions have died in China. We have no way of knowing. All right, so we're right now encountering some of the psychological conditions in the broader, greater family of woo-woo people on internet that you, as a care provider, may encounter with the people you're taking care of. So watch for this as we go along in our discussion, because you may run into these same syndromes. They're predictable, and they can be very, they can raise your level of risk. Okay, so the nature of what we're dealing with is something that escaped from a lab. That means that even if they were just noodling with it, trying to figure out a new kind of a new kind of something to go off and kill aliens or some weird ass idea, it is a bioweapon, all right? Because it's escaped from a laboratory. Even the Chinese scientists admit that. It's not my role here to make you scared of this or anything like that. If you want to see the particulars, there's lots of people putting out videos now about the particulars. Most of us are being censored in a very heavy way. And so I'll tell you right now, I'm making my own preparations. I'm trying to care for my own family and deal with all of those issues. If I get scrubbed off the net, don't expect me to put any kind of a big amount of effort into trying to get back and provide more of these videos. It simply means that we're at that point in this unfolding tragedy, and I will be putting my energy elsewhere. Okay, so we're dealing with a protein. All right. SARS2 is what we're dealing with. It produces the disease COVID-19. They call it a coronavirus, so you'll think it's like the flu. But SARS2 is like SARS1, and neither one of them are like the flu. There will be no vaccine. It was proven impossible to develop a vaccine for SARS1. I'm not going to go into why. There's other people that'll tell you that. Look up doctors on the internet that are doing videos about it that are all freaked out. They'll tell you it was impossible to develop a vaccine for SARS1. SARS1 was incredibly deadly. They were able to contain it. Most of the West didn't suffer from it. Okay, this was not the case with SARS2. SARS2 is the greater, the bigger, the more improved version. It produces the disease we've called COVID-19. But this disease that this protein causes is actually severe respiratory arrest syndrome, or sudden respiratory arrest syndrome. All right? And it's it kills you through these ACE2 receptor components in your lungs, and also can do it in your heart, also can less frequently in your gut, and also in your brain. All right, so it is very, very deadly. It's affecting men 5-3 over women. In the next go-round, in the next round around the planet, the next bloom of it, in the term of the biological warfare people, in that second bloom, it's expected to absolutely devastate, not decimate, which is 1 out of 10, but devastate young people. All right, all the way down to infants. So we really got to get serious about this shit now in order to prevent another round of major die-off 6, 8, 9 months, depending on how rapidly we're able to break the chains of globalism and sever the ability of the thing to spread. So there's a couple of issues that we're into right away. It's deadly, it's communicable. So you have a responsibility as the care provider to not communicate it to others outside of your particular situation. Not only to care for those in your situation that may get it, but also don't take it outside. This is a public responsibility kind of thing. And it's like, hey, Joe Rogan, fuck you if you don't cancel. This is some serious shit here. And you're putting thousands of people's lives at risk. Same for any actor, any performer that's going to get up on a stage and gather people together at this point. Guys, this is too fucking serious to do that kind of shit. So anyway, not that I dislike Joe Rogan, right? Right. He's got his own. He's driven by the machine that's behind him. He's got people he's got to support. These people in the all kinds of people's livelihoods are at risk, but now many more people's lives are at risk. All right. So let's talk about SARS. SARS is a protein. COVID-19 is a protein. This protein is not alive as we think of it. It can get dampened down and covered with moisture on surfaces and stay viable, which is a root Latin word that means go to life. And it can stay viable for up to 10 days on surfaces, at least 10 days. We have no way of knowing how long it stays viable in flesh. So if someone gets it and they die and that body's not discovered for months later, years later potentially, that material may still be viable. Okay, this was the issue that they found when they went hunting for the victims of the 1918 flu in the corpse of people in the burial grounds in Alaska, among other places where they thought the freezing would have kept these bodies preserved. And indeed it had. And indeed that virus at that point, the 1918 virus, which was a coronavirus, was found to be viable. And, and that's so over, I think at that point it was like 75 years when they did the exhumation of those bodies. 75 years after those people had died, that protein was still viable and they could culture it and so on. Now, proteins are not life as we understand it. It's not a critter going around, all right? But it has it's more like a component. It's more like the mechanistic part of a cell kind of a thing. It can do certain things, and that's it. It's not an evil thing. It's not going to plan against you, but it will always be predictable in certain reactions, and this is where it is vulnerable, and we can also analyze its strengths, okay? But because it is a protein, it is vulnerable. And it's vulnerable to all kinds of decontamination, depending on what you're facing right at that moment. So we're going to jump right into that. This manual, this U.S. Army manual, the Combined Military Services Manual, chapters 2 through 5, will guide you through what you need to deal with in terms of decontamination. And you'll find that it comes down to basically three different kinds of decontamination. You can do mechanical decontamination, you can do chemical, or you can do radiation. Examples of radiation would be heat, like putting it into a sauna, cranking it up to the temperature beyond which that protein can exist, or it could be the sun and UV light. You can even use UV light wands, but they take forever. You got to hold them over that surface for like 7 to 10 seconds, depending on the strength of them. And then you got to recharge them and then do it more and more and more. They do have a real advantage, though, as a black light. You can turn all the lights off in a room of an infected person and wave them around and see where there has been aerosolized droplets, see anything that you need to clean the surface of. So I really like UV lights for that purpose. Should have brought one out to demonstrate, okay? Now, you can also use microwave ovens. Microwave ovens are perfect tactic here for the strategy of using radiation to decontaminate. Say you come home from somebody in your operational decontamination. You go out to the store, you come and you take your mask off. You cannot put your mask in the microwave oven because of the metal up there. It'll arc. You can't put metal in a microwave oven. You couldn't put clothing that had silver wire in it in a microwave oven. But everything else, you can get slightly damp, and you only need a little tiny spritz of bleach, diluted bleach on a napkin, a washcloth, something like that. And I'm talking a little tiny dot. You just put that in there, fold the cloth up itself, put your clothing in there with the microwave, and give it little bursts of microwaves, and however much of a burst of a microwave. Say you give it 5 seconds to start. Then give it 15 seconds. Give it 3 times that amount to sit there in that little steam that's created by the bleach. The combination of the two. So you're doing both a chemical decontamination and a mechanical, in a sense, heat, or radiation in a sense is heat, but also the radiation of the microwave. And so that will seriously decontaminate the clothing. And so the concept is that you'll have one set of clothing that you use when you go outside the house. You may even want to store this set of clothing outside your house in a plastic bag or some other sealed container, such that when you get ready to go out and things are in full bloom and you have to go shopping or whatever, you get out and you use these clothes. And when you come back home, you strip down, put those clothes into the sack, and then at some point decontaminate them in a microwave. You can even, if you got outside power outside your house, take the microwave outside and set it outside and decontaminate that way. With you not, without bringing the clothing into the house. The idea is to keep the house as sanitary as possible. Keep your dwelling as sanitary as possible. Keep it as decontaminated as possible. This is operational decontamination. So as caregivers, make sure that you've got some kind of hand protection because you're going to be using a lot of chemicals constantly and you don't want your skin to get cracked. That's a tactic within this larger strategy of protecting yourself so that you're not going to degrade yourself and make yourself vulnerable to the virus and thus reduce your effectiveness for the people you're caring for. It gets complicated, guys. That's why this manual. So read through it. Anyway, all right, so back here. So microwave, sun, UV. Sun is about 6 hours at full intense sun. If you've got it, we never have it here, so I can't count on that. So I'm going to have to use microwaves, UV, or heat if I'm going to use radiation. For chemical, there's a bunch of different ways you can go about this. Bear in mind that proteins are like squiggly little buggers like this that are all interconnected with these various different, basically sugars, and sugars that are so dense they turn into oils, okay? Terpenols, triterpenes, all these various different cannabinols, all of these things are oils. They all come from chemicals that are basically sugar. But proteins like this lie on the surface, and as long as they've got moisture and they're protected from UV radiation, nothing's going to really bother them much. They'll last there until they basically dry out. Once they dry out, they become brittle in these joining sections and they break apart. All of the strategies or all the tactics we're talking about here within our strategy of decontaminating ourselves and others in order to end this infection, like we're taking personal responsibility for ending this bastard, right? But all of these strategies involve breaking proteins at these weak links. The weak links are the short chain things that help the long chain form together. There it's vulnerability. Within the body, my chaga mushroom idea attacks that short chain at its vulnerable point, which is these two HIV insertions that need a particular protease in order to recreate themselves. Absent that protease, the virus, the protein can't cause the body to recreate itself, and it'll be scooped up and eaten by your white cell as soon as your body kicks into the fact that it's there. So we're after this breaking up kind of an effect. You can get that breaking up kind of an effect in a protein on a surface chemically. You can apply bleach to it. So in reading manuals and reading about decontamination, you're going to find this reference constantly to 5% hypochlorite solution. Okay, here's the formula for that. This is MMS, right? Super cheap to make this stuff. That's why Jordan Sather and all these bastards are making a fortune selling you little tiny bottles of Clorox and citrus. And that's basically what their MMS is. All right. So hypochlorite solution at 5% works out to 3.2 ounces of Clorox. So that's 1.5 shot glasses, basically. All right. That'd give you a little bit stronger solution because there's usually 2 ounces in a shot glass. But 3.2 ounces of Clorox to 5 gallons of water. Stir that up in a sealed container, glass if you've got it, thick plastic if you haven't, and you've got a 5-gallon container of decontamination solution that you can set next to your door, and you can have disposable or otherwise rags. Rags can be used to wipe off people and things, and then they can be decontaminated in microwaves. But you got to be careful about that, okay? You don't want lots of this bleach solution in your microwave. Let them lie out and all of it evaporate, because the bleach solution inside the microwave, unless it's very, 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 very dilute and very small, is going to cause problems with the microwave oven itself, simply because it's going to corrode plastics and that kind of thing. It's only to be used during this period of time, and assume you're going to end up having to throw that microwave away real quick, because some of the plastics will break down if you take that approach. You need not put in the bleach in there, right? That's just for an immediate kind of a thing. Where you've got a lot of clothing, you've got to get it done, all right? You wouldn't have to do it as a regular sort of a deal. You can just use the microwaves and do brief bursts so that your clothes don't catch on fire. That's the whole point. You have to figure it out with your clothes, your microwave. You give it a few seconds. You open it up, feel the heat in there, right? Close it, give them a few more seconds, because you want to get this over the temperature at which that virus will die. Because temperature can cause this breaking right here. In fact, that's what the fever is. The fever is your body's response trying to kill the protein by producing enough heat in you to make that protein fly apart at these weak links. So see, it all comes back down no matter what's trying to do it. The bleach is trying to break up these links with the chlorine and the hypochlorite solution over here. Hang on a second, let me get out of the way. Over the hypochlorite solution. So the bleach is trying to do that. Also, it's trying to break these things. That's where UV attacks it. That's where, even where mechanical kind of means. Okay, so you can mechanically get rid of proteins on a surface simply by scrubbing the surface really hard. And in the process of doing so, you will destroy many of the proteins simply because they can't take any kind of soap and scrubbing action repeatedly. You don't have to have bleach on that surface. If you had soap, which is a surfactant, it comes underneath the protein, between the protein and the surface there itself. That's its job, and it lifts the protein up, and you can actually scrub it off, wipe it all up, and throw the stuff away, and you have mechanically removed the SARS protein virus, right? And so it can go away that way. You can get it chemically. And you can do it with bleach. You can do it with acids. You can do it with dilute vinegars, lemon juices. Anything along those lines. You can even use caustics. I don't recommend it, okay? I don't recommend the caustics. The bases are difficult to deal with, they're difficult to control, and they're very harsh on the body, and they cause respiratory problems. But in an emergency, if you had nothing else around there, you could, for instance, take like a dishwasher detergent. Terribly caustic stuff. You'd have to use huge amounts of gloves because it's going to really affect you if you get it on you. But you could put that in water, dilute it out vastly, and use that in lieu of hypochlorite as a scrubbing aid in the mechanical process of removing a protein, removing the virus if you didn't have anything else there. Again, I don't recommend it, okay? So you can also bond surfaces. I don't recommend this either. This is where you come on in with basically a sticky substance that then hardens or as it dries out, and in the drying out process steals water from the virus, breaking it in these weak points. You'll see references to this in that manual. And the military did this for like anthrax. Anthrax is a different critter because it's an encapsulated spore and it has biotin all around it. So very few of these things really actually work with things like anthrax or mushroom spores. You've got to be very particular about that. But proteins are relatively easy to decontaminate as these nasty things go. So this is we're going to work our asses off and we're going to sweat and we're going to die. But humanity has a chance against this kind of thing. All right. Now, in the mechanical thing, for operational, for reducing the amount of work you're going to have to do, you can put as many copper surfaces around as possible for you to touch in your daily business, all right? So if your doorknobs are all copper, and that copper is grounded through the steel of the door mechanism itself, it need not ground any further than that. You will be getting microcharges every time you touch that doorknob. But now bear in mind, you'll be touching a lot of these in gloves, and so that's not going to aid you in decontamination. It requires your hand to touch it in order to get that microcharge, in order to break the protein up, because what happens is that there's an electron donation issue right here. The electron comes on in and zaps the virus. Okay, so now this would tend to argue for frequency generators and all of that kind of stuff. But none of those work. The Rife machines and all of those can't work now because we're in an entirely different electromagnetic environment with new radiation levels from the sun as well as EMF all around us. And thus all of Rife's frequency numbers are all bullshit now because they were taken in an environment that we don't live in. So I'm not going to rely on any kind of a frequency generator, and I suspect that those people that do will die. Okay, so now here's some of the psychological things. Oops, hang on. Okay, so the psychological things. We're already seeing denial, okay? Here's my thing. Curse Xi Jinping, because he has killed potentially millions of people around the planet by his denial of this situation in December and January, before they closed the Wuhan. So he is truly a war criminal. He has dealt with the humanity in as a bad actor, and all other elites who follow his oh, it's a nothing burger, let's not worry about it, go about your business, all of these people too will be cursed, because this is not. We may just come right through and not have a huge giant death wave and be able to kill this, just simply because our global supply chains break so quickly. But that'll be the only thing that'll save us. It won't be the government. And I'm writing a book. It's called The Paranoid Survival Manual. And in there is rule number 33, which says, when the government tells me not to worry, and then there's a bunch of long chapters and stuff there about what one should do. So anybody in denial, don't even waste your time with them. Guys, you'll read in the manual in there about the psychological burden of dealing with individuals in contamination warfare, that denial will get you killed, even if it's him that's in denial, because his actions will be dangerous to you. And so you've got to basically wall off deniers the same way you wall off the virus, because they're going to contaminate and fuck up everything. We see it in all the movies, right? You see the guy who goes batshit crazy and can't face the aliens, and he puts everybody else's life at risk. This is classic. This happens in warfare all the time, the denial part. Now, a secondary part of that is aggression. The denier will become aggressive when you don't go along with it and support his believing mind that everything's okay. The reason that he's in denial is because he's not able to wrap his mind around the full import of, or he did once. He wrapped his mind around the full import of what is happening once, and it so frightened that mind that it's not able to ever go back there, and now it puts up a wall of denial. And that's why they become dangerous, is because that wall will always exist there, because they have seen and don't wish to see anymore. And so those of us that have seen and can deal with it have to go on and protect everybody else. And to some extent, you will have to get rid of connections to deniers, because they may become aggressive and slow you down and actually compromise your situation. Now, many times, both of these things work into irrationality, but irrationality is also a separate reaction that is at the same level of denial. You can't really see it, but that's why I've capitalized those, okay? So there's three major things that'll cause you a problem, especially if you're trying to deal with a group. And that is the denial, the irrationality, and catatonia. Because everybody's going to freak out if someone goes into a fetal position and can't be reached and becomes mentally disconnected. Those are actually the people that you're not going to have a whole lot of trouble with, but they may become a burden, all right? But they're at least not out causing you problems in an active way. But bear in mind that everybody's going to have to deal with this, because you got to deal with the 5 stages of grief. It's happening to us now. Everybody's at risk. Your own life is at risk. The lives of everybody you care about are at risk. And this is very, very, very difficult to take on board, internalize, and not go batshit crazy. All right? So I don't in any way fault or castigate anybody for these kind of reactions. These are normal, typical human reactions to the horror that we're facing, okay? Because our planet is being attacked by a bioweapon. Or not our planet. Planet will be here if all humans die off. Planet's going to be here forever. It's done all of its stuff forever. What does it care about humanity? But humanity is being attacked by a bioweapon. So I say that Xi Jinping is a war criminal. He's a horrific demon. Curse him to hell. Any other of these elites that are going to try and promote denial and promote inaction, curse them to hell as well. And see, here's the thing about this kind of thing, right? No, I won't go in there. I won't go into that. All right, I'm just going to curse them to hell. And I know for a fact that there's gradations of hell. So I'm going to go to my hell, and it's nowhere near what Xi Jinping is going to suffer. And when I go to my hell, I can take the worst that is there and laugh and smile, because I am not that fucker. I did not kill and do those kind of horrific acts to my own species. So I'm going to get off into a rant that's not of use to anybody, so I'm going to end this here real quick. All right, so Chapter 2 is planning. Chapter 3 is immediate decontamination. Chapter 4 is operational decontamination. That's 4. Chapter 5 is thorough decontamination. Chapter 6 is clear decontamination. All right, you're going to be actually shocked at how long it's going to take to reopen public buildings if it's ever thought that there was an infected person in them. Decontamination, mechanical, chemical, radiation. Learn it because you're going to live it. You can make your own hypochlorite solution out of Clorox, cheap, any other bleach, about the same ratio. When you get into this situation, you're going to really learn how to bathe. Okay, you're going to have to really learn how to keep your skin clean and all of this kind of stuff. So we're all going to learn to clean and be fixated and obsessive about it. Anyway, the manual will give you ideas about the operational. You basically break everything down into zones. You have clothing and equipment and stuff. You keep everything that's in that zone of contamination within the zone of contamination. You strip down, clean yourself off before going from one zone to another. And that's fundamentally what it is, right? Super hygiene from zone to zone to zone. And you conceptualize the zone. So I have a piece of property here. The contamination zone is on the outside of the property. That's my goal. Within my property, I have my outside zone, which is more contaminated than my inside zone, but it's not as contaminated as the zone outside of my property. And my inside zone is kept at the most possible level of cleanliness I can. So it's basically really simple, but it will be physically demanding and mentally demanding and very scary because our supply chains are going to break down and there will be irrational activity from other people around us. Boy, guys, I'm serious here. With respect, please download this military manual, read it, and pass it around. And pass around this video, if none others, to those people that you know as adults will have to care for individuals, that will have to care for groups and stuff, because they need to know this stuff. Government isn't going to tell them. With respect.